Hey guys, OGalbina here, and today we're going to be doing another kind of leak discussion type video, a lot like the Palmy one we did the other day. So I do want to give you guys, as a heads up, a spoiler warning. We are going to be talking about leaks that are very likely to be true, not guaranteed, but very, very likely to be true. So if you are trying to go into the game spoiler free, this is your spoiler warning. Go ahead and click off, come back maybe after these things are officially announced, or after the game's out. Maybe we could talk about it then, or, you know, when you get inevitably spoiled on Twitter or something like that. So I just want to give you a heads up. If you do not want to be spoiled about the game, go ahead and click off the video now. I shouldn't have anything revealing in the thumbnail overly. And yeah, with that being said, if you guys do enjoy today's video, today's discussion on these leaks, please let me know in the comments below. Drop a like and sub to the channel. We are so close to 1,000 subs. I would really appreciate it if you help me out along that way. If we get to 1,000 before Scarlet and Violet, I will be doing a giveaway of 2 copies of the game. And yeah, I really hope that you kind of support me along getting that goal of 1,000. I really appreciate it. Okay. That being said, spoiler warnings out of the way, plugging out of the way. Let's go ahead and talk about it. Now, in Scarlet and Violet, a lot like other games, we're going to be having like different alternate forms of Pokemon. There's going to be a few regional variants, which has been things that have happened in the past. But the main one that I'm really interested in myself is, one, we're going to be getting some really cool cross-gen evolutions. And 2, we're going to be getting these Pokemon as, and I think it's in the Japanese text of the game, they've been seen as like paradox Pokemon, which is basically past and future forms of Pokemon of today. So there will be Pokemon that will be having forms of them in the past, what they look like in ancient times potentially, or you know, maybe even a couple thousand years ago. It might even vary. And then Pokemon of their future selves kind of being brought back to our current time period, and it's called the paradox, obviously, because that can create, like, you know, different time-space paradoxes and things like that, because they're not supposed to exist in our time period, but they are, and it just, you know, a bunch of crazy time stuff. So I think that's a really cool idea, and we're going to be talking about these Pokemon, right? The ones that are kind of confirmed or very much so likely via this leak. We're going to talk about their potential competitive viability, what I think they could potentially look like, abilities and stats and different things like that of what they might be. Now, keep in mind, we don't have any official information on that, so this is going to be me guessing, putting a shot in the dark, saying, I think this Pokemon will be great, and I think it might have this type, or it might have this type. I think this Pokemon's going to be okay, things like that. So I think it'll be a lot of fun. I love theory mining and kind of, you know, making these predictions and things like that. So I think it'll be a good time. So yeah, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and throw the picture on the screen. This is via Centro Pokemon news thingy on Twitter. They're not the most credible source, but they're kind of just posting things from the credible source. So it's a pretty credible picture and a good kind of basis of what we have before. So first, we're going to talk about Wooper and a new Wooper evolution. We know that it is going to be a poison type, right? Now, let's take Quagsire. And my kind of main thought with this is if Quagsire stays largely the same, but becomes a poison type, maybe even a poison ground type, maybe even a poison water type, or just pure poison. Great defensive typing, and it keeps very similar abilities, at least in the hidden ability area and unaware. It's actually a pretty solid typing on, you know, different stall builds and things like that. Poison is a very solid defensive typing, especially resisting like offensive fightings, which can rip through a lot of stall teams, especially if, like, you know, they're carrying like Skarmory as their physical wall or something like that. So I think that could be really cool, but something that is very important to note on a Pokemon like Quagsire, if it is an unaware Stallmon here to kind of deter setup and things like that, is that if you are unaware, you stop stat boost, but the move's stored power, while it is kind of affected by you calm minding, weakness policing up agility, and cosmic powering, whatever it is, while unaware may ignore that boost, it will not ignore the base power of what stored power is. So let's go ahead and try and illustrate that, right? We're going to take something like Reuniclus, and we're going to take something like Clefable. This video is going to be a little bit long because I really like theory mining and I really like talking about stuff like this. I'm going to change it to unaware. You can't really see it, but unaware. Perfect. Now, let's go ahead and go to +6 Reuniclus. You can see that +6 Life Orb, it does not do any different damage because it's unaware. It looks like it does 35 to 41. This is unaware. If we put on the same exact set, stored power, we OHKO. Guaranteed. To at least this class spread. So it's cool because, again, it says 260 base power. So that's pretty detrimental, I think, on a poison type being extra weak to stored power, because a lot of unaware mons already are. So that could be a detriment to it, but I think it'd still be, you know, a decently solid Pokemon. I'm not the biggest fan of in standard right now, just because of the fact that it doesn't have the greatest bulk in the world. And while it deters setup, it does get 2-hit KO'd by a lot of strong Pokemon. And with how much power creep has gone throughout the last few generations, it's just not the bulkiest thing in the world anymore, in my opinion. So that's just something to keep in mind at the very least. Okay, next up we'll talk about Taurus. And Taurus is an interesting case because Taurus is actually supposed to be getting 3 regional forms, depending on the region of the area of the region that you're in, and they're supposed to all get different typings. We know that one confirmed is a pure fighting type, and then we know that 2 of the other ones are dual typing of different types and things like that. So we'll talk about fighting type Taurus next. Let's say it keeps Sheer Force, and it keeps Close Combat as stat. That's great. Close Combat, Earthquake. It keeps a very similar stat spread, 110, 252, something like that, and it's, you know, potentially really strong, really fast Pokemon. Not the worst thing in the world. It might get some good coverage, it might get bulk up, it might even get another way to boost its attack outside of what I believe Work Up right now is its only way of doing so, which is definitely really cool. If it keeps Sheer Force, it's a great ability, and it boosts a lot of moves. Maybe it even gets a fighting move that is boosted by Sheer Force. Close Combat, unfortunately, isn't. Lowering your Spadef and your Fishdef doesn't really count as like the secondary effect aspect of it. It kind of has to be secondary effects onto other Pokemon. But what I think could be really cool on a fighting Taurus is the ability Defiant. Really making this thing be a good defog deterrent. Something that can't be stopped by N-Tim pivoting, which Taurus is actually pretty susceptible to right now, especially, you know, regular Taurus. So I think that could be really cool, especially a potential fighting type Taurus. I think that would definitely be kind of annoyed by N-Tim pivoting and things like that. So I think this thing getting Defiant would be really cool. As for the other 2, obviously, we don't have much information on them. Some cool things I was thinking of is maybe we get like a normal ground or a ground type Taurus, like a normal ground type or something like that. That could be cool. It would make a little bit of sense. I'm not too familiar with the areas of the region that it's obviously going to be based into, so these are kind of just shots in the dark. I also think maybe like a dark or a fire type Taurus, kind of leaning into that Minotaur aspect a little bit more, could also be really, really cool. So who knows, it could get a million different typings really in those other 2 areas, but knowing the fighting typing is when we can kind of talk about the most. But I figure it's at least worth mentioning that like a, you know, a dark fighting or a dark fire or something like that, Minotaur or something like that could be really, really cool as well in my opinion. Okay, on to the next. We have Primate. Primate will be getting a new evolution, supposedly, hypothetically, theoretically. And that new evolution is going to be a fighting ghost type. Kind of playing on the Pokédex entries that says, like, it's so angry it fights until it dies. Or something crazy like that. But for those of you who don't know, ghost fighting is a virtually unresisted typing in the game. There's nothing that takes the combination of ghost with fighting. For any of you who plays Ubers or Ubers Draft or seen our BBL season where we had Marshadow, that Pokemon is insane because nothing switches into the dual stab combination of ghost plus fighting. It's ridiculously hard to take on. So I think this Pokemon could be pretty darn insane if it ended up getting a ghost fighting evolution. And if it's an evolution, the idea is that it probably gets a stat buff. Now, if it gets a speed boost in particular, I really think that's all it needs. Now, an attack boost would be nice. Maybe it goes to like 120 attack or something like that. And then let's say just 105 speed, something over base 100. I think that's all this thing needs to be a ridiculously strong and ridiculously scary Pokemon. As long as it gets good physical ghost stab and close combat and it keeps U-turn and all these crazy things that it has before, it could be a really great Pokemon, especially in conjunction with, like we were just talking about, Defiant, which is a great ability on, you know, physical attacking pivots and things like that, like Primate. It'd still be a great Scarfer. It could pivot around with U-turn. It's just a very solid Pokemon overall, and again, that just goes unresisted, especially in conjunction with cool coverage like Gunk Shot and Elemental Punches and, you know, even the weird Throat Chop or whatever it might be. So, it could be a really, really solid Pokemon. That offensive typing in itself is just absolutely insane. Okay, next up, we will talk about Girapr, also supposedly getting a new evolution. From what I saw, now this could be completely wrong, I don't really have anything super confirming this, so I could be remembering wrong, is Girapr's Evo should be a pure Psychic type, which I think would be pretty darn cool, honestly. Pure Psychic, in my opinion, is a much better defensive typing than normal Psychic. It lets you keep that fighting resistance, and normal, it just gives you that immunity to Ghost, which is nice, I suppose, but I think that can be patched in other areas in a lot of instances, and I would rather have that fighting resistance on my bulky Psychic. Now, as for Girapr in evolution, I think they could take it 2 different ways. I think they could either make it more offensive, maybe make it a little bit faster again, 95, 105, maybe a 20-point speed boost or something like that, make it a little bit stronger, and it could be really potent offensively. This thing gets access to Nasty Plot, as well as Calm Mind, as well as Agility, which you see right there, which is really, really solid, alongside some great coverage, which you can kind of scroll through. It's got like that early Gen Mon syndrome, where it has really, really solid offensive coverage, and Dazzling Gleam, Energy Ball. Foul Play is always cool, especially on faster Pokemon. What else? Obviously, Psychic, Psyshock, Shadow Ball, Thunderbolt. It gets Trick, so like Trick, Scarf, and Spec sets could be really scary and things like that. So I think that could be a cool area that they end up taking in. Or let's say they make it a lot bulkier and a lot stronger. Maybe they still buff that special attack, but we give it a much higher HP stack. Something I learned today. I was today years old when I found out that Girapr actually has access to Wish, which is actually a pretty valuable tool. It's something that I think it could really get down with. And you know, if it was a little bit more bulky of a normal Psychic, maybe it's Wish and has Calm Mind and things like that. Maybe it gets another move for reliable recovery. Does it get like Morning Sun? It doesn't. That'd be cool. I know a lot of Gen 2 mons I feel like get Morning Sun. Maybe I'm tripping on that, but yeah, overall I think it's an okay Pokemon. And I think it'll actually make EVO Giraffe a little bit better. It's not the best Wish Pass in the world, but it'll make it a really solid Ghost check, especially with the normal Psychic typing, and getting that EVO defense boost, making that 65-65 bulk not as terrible. So, you know, you never know. Maybe Giraffe will be viable in Gen 9 here. Okay. Next up, we have Duskparce. Supposedly, Duskparce is getting an evolution. Now, I don't think it's getting another typing. I heard it's going to stay grounded, and I heard it's going to be a pure normal type. Now, as for what Duskparce's Evo could do, as much as I would love for this Pokemon to be, like, insane, I don't think that they can really make this thing broken if they keep it in the direction that I think they're going to. I think they're going to make it a lot bulkier, maybe a little bit stronger. If it kept the same HP and then just gained stats in this middle area, I think that would be perfect. Even lowering its speed would be fun. It'd be a very good bulky normal with reliable recovery and roost, speed control and glare. It can even Calm Mind for some reason, so if it gets a good special attack boost, again, it gets very solid coverage overall. But I don't see them buffing this thing to a considerable amount to where it would be like a top tier Pokemon. I actually probably see like a Duskparce evolution being at about a Drampa level, which is ironic because Drampa kind of looks like it should be a Duskparce evolution, or at least that they were like related in some way. So, no, like I said, who knows? Maybe this. Oh, it also gets Coil too. I did forget to mention. So Coil plus Roost. So maybe it's like about Drampa level, and also makes Duskparce again a little bit more viable with an Eviolite, making this thing pretty darn bulky with 100 HP and then 70 and 65 in its defenses. An Eviolite boost can make this thing pretty annoying. So it'll give it viability, which I think is very important. Not every Pokemon that's introduced has to be broken. So as long as it has some kind of viability in the lower tiers, or it's a lower tier draft league pick or something like that, I think it's worth. Okay. Next up, we have Bisharp, and Bisharp supposedly getting an evolution is very, very interesting to me. What I think they'll do with it is maybe they'll take it and continue with like the chess theme, go Pawn, Bishop, and then maybe like Knight or King or whatever it might be, something higher than Bisharp currently is. Now, I don't know if this is going to be like a split Evo, but I feel like if they put Bisharp on this list, that means that Bisharp is going to be the one evolving, not Pawniard into a different one, if that makes any sense. So, now, I'm also not the biggest chess buff in the world. Maybe the Knight isn't better than the Bishop. I don't know, bro. But regardless, I can see them going in that kind of direction with it. What I really want from a Bisharp evolution, personally, is I would love for this thing to be just a little bit faster. It's very strong. Dark Steel is a very strong offensive typing as well. Excuse me. If this thing could gain a little bit of speed, even if it's only like base 90, it would be very, very potent. Maybe a little bit more attack, maybe even give it a little bit more Spadef and things like that, so it can function a little bit more as a Dark type that pivots into offensive Psychics or shut up Psychics and things like that. I think that would be really, really clutch. Eviolite, Bisharp is okay, and since it allows you to get those Swords Dances off a little bit more freely, because you don't really with your really bad bulk right now. But with an Eviolite, you might be able to do so a little bit easier, but you're obviously giving the cost of Black Glasses, Life Orb, Band, whatever item that you end up going with your Bisharp. So I think you kind of give and you take a little bit. But yeah, that's going to be the last cross-gen evolution that we're going to look at for the day. Now we have the really fun ones in the Paradox Pokemon for past and future. There's also something called Convergent Species on here as well that, here, I can scroll over. We know of potentially 2 Diglett Water and a Gen 1 Water type. Now, the reason I'm not really going over those ones is because I don't really know what they are, and I don't want to just like kind of like spew nonsense. My ideas are like conversion evolution, like there's 2 completely different like separate Pokemon species, and they evolve in a similar way and become very similar, but they're still not the same species of Pokemon or a part of the same family. They just ended up being the same, just due to like conversion evolution is how I would think. But I don't really have any ideas on, you know, what those Pokemon would be and things like that. So I'm going to leave that alone for now. Maybe as we get more confirmed, I'll make a separate video talking about those guys, but I'm still kind of confused on the concept of it at the very least. But yeah, first up, the one we have confirmed is going to be Jigglypuff. Now, this is probably the lamest one that we have, because from what I also understand, these Paradox Pokemon will not evolve. They will not have baby forms or adult forms, which means that if it is a Paradox Jigglypuff, that means it will be a Jigglypuff no matter what. And I guess that would be because if we get a Jigglypuff sent from the past to the present day, the whole species isn't going to be there. It's not going to be able to procreate or anything like that. So it's going to be stuck as that one Jigglypuff that is in present day, right? Now that's kind of the way that I see it and why it probably won't be able to evolve. I also don't know if because of that, they're going to make these Pokemon stats buffed and better and sort of make them like pseudo-mega Pokemon, which would be really cool. I'm not too sure on that. If they do, then we might have, you know, a somewhat viable Jigglypuff. It has like similar Wigglytuff stats. But I'm going to do this prediction based on the assumption that their base stats total teams stays the same or very similar. Just because I think we could fall down a rabbit hole if I'm like, this thing's going to get 80 attack, 20 speed, 40 special attack, you know, and kind of just add on a bunch of random stats. So we're going to kind of assume that they're going to be very similar typings. Jigglypuff, I don't really know what this thing can do when it comes to, I don't know if we're just giving it a new form. If it stays like, if it stays like a pure fairy type, I would assume it's going to be like, I don't know. It'll probably be the same. Maybe if they buff its stats, it'll be like a little bit more viable in Little Cup. I really don't know. This one kind of stumped me. It sucks that this is the first one we're talking about because it looks like we don't know what to talk about. But I have some really cool ideas for the other ones. Promise, don't leave yet. Next up, we have Amoonguss. And this is actually a Pokemon I feel like could really suffer from this, you know, this change, right? Because Amoonguss, for those of you who don't know, is a pretty solid Pokemon. It's a pretty solid defensive pivot with Regen, which is the best ability in the game, and you can't change my mind otherwise, and very, very good defensive stats with the Grass Poison typing, which is pretty solid defensively, right? Access to Spore, it can be very, very annoying. I think the Paradox Pass form Amoonguss will be very similar, at least looking at the design of it. Now, I'm not going to pop the design on the screen because I don't know if Nintendo Ninjas will try and destroy me. But I think it's going to be very, very similar. The only thing that worries me is I saw that it has legs. It looks a little bit thinner to me, at least, and it has like spikes on its head. So that makes you think maybe it goes a little bit more offensive. Maybe instead of Effect Spore as one of its abilities, it gets like Poison Point or something like that, and it focuses solely on poisoning with like the spikes and the quills. But Effect Spore also makes sense, so maybe it doesn't. I'm hoping it keeps Regen. Maybe it loses a little bit of bulk for some offenses, but even then, I don't think a Pokemon like Amoonguss can really afford that, and I think it would make it exponentially worse if it ends up getting that. So hopefully I'm wrong, because I don't think Amoonguss past form will be as good as Amoonguss like present day or whatever, like normal Amoonguss. So we'll see. I'm not the biggest on that. I could also, again, with the spikes on, see it getting Spiky Shield, which is a cool buff. But I don't know. If it loses bulk, I think it ends up getting worse, no matter what else kind of moves they add to it. It already has one of those least drawback moves in the game in Spore, especially with the secondary poison typing. So it's very interesting. Next up, we have Volcaron, and Volcaron is a very interesting case because it's supposedly getting a past form and a future form. I should probably show it on the screen, right? Bam! So yeah, look, we have Volcaron here with past and future, which could be really interesting. Now, my best idea probably comes in the past, right? If you look at Volcaron's old Pokedex entries in like Gen 5 and things like that, there's like this big talk of it being like this legendary Pokemon who saved the world because it acted as the sun during like a really harsh winter and saved a bunch of lives and things like that. They even have Volcaron in this like old temple in Gen 5, and it almost feels like a legendary Pokemon. Then you realize it's just a very solid Pokemon. What if the past form of that kind of leans into that fire god aspect a little bit more? And an ability I was thinking this might be a little broken, especially if Volcaron keeps the same stats it does now, or even especially if it gets better, is giving this thing Drought. Could be really cool. Again, it just kind of keeping that like sun god thing. It acted as the sun. Well, if it's summoning the sun or summoning sun rays, I feel like Drought would be a very smart thing. Because in Pokemon, obviously, I don't think Drought means like you're actually controlling the sun. I feel like it's just you're bringing like heat to the area. I don't know. I could be completely wrong on that, but I think it'd be really cool if they leaned into that a little bit more. It got Drought over like Swarm, And then Flame Body is its main ability still, because there's other dex entries about Volcaron in the past, like keeping those Pokemon warm by like it being close to them and things like that. So obviously Flame Body makes a little bit of sense. I think it would mostly play the same. Maybe it's a little bit slower, a little bit more chunky speed F-wise, or even a little bit stronger or something like that. But if it stays mostly the same and keeps Quiver, I think like a past form Volk with like Drought would be ungodly broken and really hard to deal with over the course of the game. Now, as for future Volk, this one I was a little bit more confused on. I was a little bit tougher. So the area that I I just deleted Volcaron and put it back on the team builder. The kind of idea that I had when it came to this, at least I'm looking at my notes, what I have, is maybe it becomes like Bug Ice, like a little bit more Frost Moth-esque, because I know in the distant future, and I guess it depends on how far into the future it is, the sun is, you know, obviously slowly dying and things like that. So maybe it's the idea of like the sun dying and going out and, you know, losing its heat and just exploding and it being a husk of its former self. So maybe like Bug Ice, because the fire and the rays are gone at this point. Or maybe the earth becomes much more, you know, colder in the future or something like that. Who knows? And it leans into like a Bug Ice, you know, stereotype. Maybe it's like a little bit more of like that conversion evolution with Frostmoth and it kind of becoming very similar. Or maybe Volcaronas and Frostmoths, you know, end up kind of living in the same area and crossbreeding and becoming like a hybrid type of Pokemon kind of thing was my idea. Again, still keeping Quiver, and maybe even getting a random fire move and its coverage to reference what it used to be. I don't know. But being that Bug Ice type and then like getting like Earth power, so it has some way of hitting steels and things like that. I think it'd be really, really cool personally. I don't know. I was a little bit more stumped on this idea. Let me know what you guys think a future Volcarona would look like. That was kind of my idea. Okay, this next one is my favorite one, because it is my favorite Pokemon, and when I found out this guy was going to get a potential past form, Paradox form, I was so excited for these games. It's really what made me want to make this video in Salamence. Now, Salamence is supposed to be getting a past Paradox form, which would be awesome. And my idea for Salamence was a pretty cool one. I like this one a lot. If you look at Bagon's Pokedex entries and you just know like the lore of Bagon, one of the reasons I love this line so much is Bagon has that big shell on its head, that big helmet, because he's just jumping off cliffs trying to learn how to fly because he has this dream to fly. And the story is that eventually it does it so much, it turns into Shelgon, and then via just like it wanting it so bad and like genetic mutation and like over time and things like that, it sprouts wings and it takes to the airs and it flies, which is awesome. But what if this is a Bagon line or a Salamence line that kind of took place before those genetic mutations started happening and took over the main genes of what Salamence used to be before it could fly? And maybe it kind of leans into like that armored aspect that Bagon and Shelgon, who's literally just shell in front of Gon, has, and it's like a rock dragon Salamence. Now, obviously, Bagon and Shelgon don't have the most rock type moves in their move pool. They do have Rock Slide and Rock Tomb, which is cool, and Rollout, Ayo, but they obviously don't have the most rock type moves. But obviously, if it's a Pokemon from the past, it would have a different move pool. So maybe we could add in some more rock type moves. We give it Stone Edge and keep Rock Slide, and get Rock Polish and things like that as a way to boost its speed. I think stat-wise, it would probably be a little bit slower, have less special attack, but I think it would be much, much stronger on the physical attacking side. As for abilities, I think you could get some really cool ones, right? My idea was giving this thing Head Smash, maybe even a random Flare Blitz or something like that, because it's a dragon. But it getting Rock Head, which would be really cool. Rock Head or Sheer Force, which Bagon both has as both of its abilities. So it just kind of leans into like Bagon more, and it doesn't have that random crazy mutation that makes it this flying, you know, traditional dragon, and it's on all fours, and it's a rock dragon Salamence with Rockhead and Sheer Force, and it's kind of what Bagon would be if it couldn't fly. Maybe it's a little bit more angry and vengeful because it never reached that goal. It could never fly like it wanted to, and it's upset about it. I think that could be really cool, like an armor-plated Salamence with Rock Dragon. Oh, I think that would be so cool. I could also see it keeping Intimidate, obviously, as an ability. That would definitely make sense. So maybe it goes like Intim and Sheer Force, and it doesn't keep Rockhead or something like that. But I think it'd be cool. Even Moxie, I think those all still work, but it's me theorizing, hoping my favorite Pokemon gets something really cool. So that's my idea at the very least. I don't know. I really like the idea. I think it could be awesome. Let me know what you guys think, though. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's a little bit of a stretch, but I would love it. I think it would be awesome. Okay, next up, we have another cool Pokemon, and Misdreavus. Now, this is going to be a Misdreavus that does not evolve into Mismagius, presumably, as far as we know. Now, Misdreavus is a very interesting Pokemon. It is pretty darn slow, or it's very mediocre. It's not slow. It's not the fastest in the world. It's not the bulkiest in the world. It's not the strongest in the world. What I'm hoping they do with Mischievous is, you see in its name, it's Mischievous, it sounds like. And in its Pokédex entry, it talks a lot about it messing with Pokemon and playing pranks on people and scaring them by yelling. And there's a lot of kind of like sound moves that it ends up getting, things like Perish Song and I believe Hyper Voice as well and things like that. So what I would think would be cool is maybe they redistribute these stats for this thing to be a little bit more offensive. Maybe keep it as slow as it is, if you want, and, you know, take out a little bit of its Spadef and put it in its special attack or something like that, and making this thing a little bit more vengeful and angry. It doesn't like playing pranks on people, more so it likes to terrify them and, you know, kind of hurt them and things like that, especially leaning into that voice aspect and things like that. So what I think would be cool is they make it a little bit more mean, they make it a little bit more sound-based, a little bit more offensive, and they make it a ghost normal type, because we don't have one of those. Now again, this is a stretch, but I think it would be really cool. The ghost normal type, they give it Boom Burst, maybe a signature move that's a ghost sound move. And then they give it some kind of punk rock-esque ability. I don't think a past Pokemon is going to get punk rock, because I don't think thousands of years ago punk rock existed. I sure hope not. I wish it didn't exist now. But something like that just boosts sound moves, maybe boost sound moves off of Mischievous, or maybe even a ghost type Pixelate or something like that to make, no, because you kind of want Hyper Voice. You want to keep Hyper Voice as normal stab, or Boom Burst, so that's probably not it. Maybe you just don't make it a ghost normal and you give it like a ghost Pixelate and you make Hyper Voice and Boom Burst two of its options to click. I don't know. I think that could be really cool. And you kind of lean into like the little bit more angry side of it, opposed to it being playful and mischievous. Maybe it's just angry Drevis or something like that. Mean Drevis. Definitely don't pay me to name these Pokemon, but I have some good ideas. Let me know. So I think that would be really cool, personally. But yeah. Next up is one, I won't lie to you, I did not have a good idea for. I just didn't have a good idea for. That's going to be Delibird getting a future form. So we're kind of leaning into only future forms for these next couple. I think we have what? We have Delibird. We have 4 more, including this Delibird. This one, I had a lot of trouble. Apparently, it's supposed to be saying the same typing, and I couldn't really think of a future Delibird. My buddy Kurt said maybe, like, its beard turns more ice-like, like translucent and ice-like, and gets a little bit longer, and maybe it's, like, older looking or something like that. But I don't know. I really couldn't think of a good Delibird one. So this is the one I'm really going to ask you guys in the comments below. Please let me know what you think a future Delibird could be like, because I really can't think of anything personally at this point in time. Like I said, Kurt had the best idea out of all my buddies. Other than that, someone else said he gets 2 bags, which those aren't even, I don't think that's a bag. I think that's like physically attached to his body, which is disgusting. Maybe he gets rid of the bag because evolution says this is weird and probably shouldn't be a thing. That's what I'm hoping for, actually. That'll be mine. So next up though, we have Glade. Now, from what I saw doing research for this and things like that, this is supposedly going to be a Glade that, what do you call it, is kind of a mixture of Gardevoir and Glade, which could be a really cool concept. So my idea for it was it being a little bit more of a mixed attacker. Maybe it loses a little bit of Spadef or something like that, and we put that into its special attack to where it can kind of lean both. Maybe we take out 10 attack and 20 Spadef, and we add that 30 to its special attack, and it kind of, you know, works as a hybrid, and it can be mixed with, you know, special coverage or physical with physical coverage, or let's say it even becomes a full special attacker, and it's still like the knight, but it calls upon like magic or something like that. Maybe it's a mage or something like that instead, kind of a mixture of the hero and, you know, like the magician sorceress thing that, not even magician, like sorceress thing that Gardevoir is, you know? I think that could be cool. And maybe even they even take the secondary typings of both and it becomes a fighting fairy type, which is a ridiculously insane offensive typing, by the way, and I think that'll be really cool. Let me actually see, is there a fighting fairy type? I don't think there is. Fluffle and Cap, so there is not. This is a Cap Pokemon, not a real Pokemon, which Smogon has this really cool thing that's create a Pokemon, and people create their own Pokemon, and it's like has its own metagame. Really cool thing. I played in a couple Cap draft leagues, and they're a lot of fun. I played against this Pokemon. It's a demon. Natural Cure, and Aromavale, and Friendguard's only cool in doubles, but cool Pokemon. So I think that could be a cool idea, maybe make it Fighting Fairy and give it both of its secondary typings or something like that, that Garden Glade definitely had before. So who knows? But I think it's going to be some kind of a mixture between Glade and Gardevoir. They'll meet somewhere in the middle and kind of have traits of both, if they're going to kind of look like both, in my opinion. Okay, Next up, we already talked about Volcaron, and we can talk about Tyranitar. And I felt like this was going to be the easiest one. If it's a Tyranitar from the future, the Pokemon that is based on Godzilla, it's just going to be Mecha Godzilla, right? It has to be, right? And I think that would be really cool. While it's an easy one for them to go to, I think it would make a lot of sense. I think instead you would obviously take away the dark typing and make it steel, which I think is also cool because not only is that a great defensive typing, you know, add steel typing on, also Mecha Godzilla, it would still be 4 times weak to dark, or to fighting. Sorry, it's not 4 times weak to dark, it's 4 times weak to fighting, which is definitely really, really cool in my opinion. And some cool things I think they could do with its stats. I think they potentially definitely have to make it slower than it already is. Not that it's a speed demon as now, but if you're running around, you're a giant hunk of metal, especially Mecha Godzilla, and your regular T-Tar form, you only base 61 speed, I think you take away maybe like 20 speed, and you add it to like its special attack, or its special defense or something like that, which I think could be really cool. I think Mecha Godzilla should definitely have a higher special attack stat than 95, and we can kind of add it on there. Steel Dark as a typing, I think it can have a bunch of really cool abilities. The one I want the most would be Filter, which basically just reduces the damage you take from super effective hits. It's Mega Aggron's ability, so which is another big hulking piece of metal, which is definitely really cool in my opinion. So I don't know, I think that could be a really cool option for Mecha Godzilla. I think it could also be Intimidate. Is there any other notes I had in it potentially? Yeah. Or Battle Armor. Battle Armor would be another really cool one. Avoiding crits, that would also obviously make sense being covered in armor. So it's a pretty easy one to go for, but I feel like it's the one that makes the most sense to me. I don't know. That's just me though. Okay. Next up, we can't really see because my face is here. Hold on. Can I hide myself? Bam! We have Gen 2 Pokemon, which I skipped on the other one because we don't know what they are yet. And Hariyama. This one was also a little bit tough, but I got a cool idea from some buddies. Basically saying instead of being that physical fighting type kind of thing, what if Hariyama went a little bit more the peaceful route, leaned into like the Buddha kind of thing because he's a big guy and went more Buddha inspired and became a psychic type and was a special attacker instead. Really, I think you could just swap its attack and its special attack. It could keep psychic fighting, or it could even just be pure psychic, and maybe it gets a little bit of Spadef on top of that fat HP or something like that. It gets a little bit slow or something like that, and I could totally see Hariyama just vibing. You know, I think that would be really, really cool. It would kind of change up the Pokemon completely. You could still have it keep Thick Fat and Sheer Force, and then maybe for an ability you have it have like Analytic or something of the sorts. I don't know particularly everything that you would go for on that ability wise, but Analytic kind of pops into mind. Maybe Magic Guard, maybe something like Triage, who knows, something like that. But oh, I'm not even showing the team builder. There he is. I was gonna look at Hariyama. So yeah, flipping that attack and that special attack, and maybe getting a little bit more Spadef, getting a little bit slower as is, because it's already slow. But again, a lot like Godzilla, I feel like if we leaned into that peaceful Buddhist monk kind of vibe of it, and being like, you know, violence is the answer kind of thing, I think that could be really, really cool. But yeah, that's basically it. I think I covered everything, again, minus the convergent species, but I don't really have too much I can really comment on that, so I want to make sure I at least have some cool ideas. Let me know what you guys thought. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this. I kind of took what a lot of people do and kind of like theory modding about these leaks and put a little bit more of a competitive spin on it, because that's what I enjoy doing. And again, if you want to sub to the channel for more, I make plenty of competitive Pokemon content each and every week. I make a lot of Draft League content, and I'm really excited to start playing Draft and things like that in Gen 9, so definitely check out more on the channel and sub if you're enjoying it and things like that. I also make some Nuzlocke videos here and there as well. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Hopefully, we can trade later soon. But no holding my breath for this. Alright guys, later.